Japan's history stretches back to the Paleolithic period, around 38,000 to 39,000 years ago, with the Jomon people, hunter-gatherers, and the earliest human settlers being the earliest human settlers. Around the 3rd century BCE, the Yayoi people arrived in Japan, bringing iron technology and agriculture, rapidly expanding the population and eventually overpowering the Jomon. Konnichiwa everyone! Welcome back to our channel. Today we're embarking on a captivating journey through the rich tapestry of Japan's history. Japan's story is one of resilience, innovation, and cultural splendor from ancient to modern times. So, grab your virtual passports and let's dive into the captivating tale of Japan's history. Our journey began over 1,000 years ago in the enchanting land of the rising sun. Ancient Japan, steeped in mystery and tradition, saw the emergence of pivotal periods that shaped the nation's identity. Japan has an enriching and ancient past. It may be separated into several eras and periods, starting with the distant ancient past. Japan is said to have grown throughout history, from the Jomon period thousands of years ago to the current Heisei era, and become a powerful worldwide force. Japan has been shaped by its proximity to the massive Asian continent and its seclusion as an island nation. The country has incorporated ideas and customs from other countries while fostering its unique approach to problem solving during isolation. These patterns and tendencies combined create the captivating Japan of today. Humans settled in Japan ages ago, but when precisely remains unknown. Despite early beliefs, the discovery of thousands of Paleolithic sites post-World War II has unveiled a rich history. These sites showcase various tools, including core tools chipped from stone and flake tools crafted from broken stone pieces. It's widely accepted that these tool users migrated to Japan from the Asian continent, facilitated by land connections through the Korean and Tsushima Straits and the Soya and Tsugaru Straits. The Paleolithic period in Japan is estimated to have occurred between 30,000 and 10,000 years ago, with some arguments suggesting a lower Paleolithic culture predating 35,000 BCE. While the exact culture of this period is unclear, evidence suggests a life of hunting and gathering, using fire and dwelling in pit-type homes or caves. Interestingly, no bone or horn artifacts typical of other regions during this period have been found in Japan. This led to its classification as a pre-ceramic era, indicating a need for pottery knowledge. As climatic shifts occurred, a Mesolithic stage emerged, prompted by depleting fauna due to a growing human population. To adapt to these changes, the bow and arrow were introduced as a local response to the diminishing game of sustenance. This journey into Japan's prehistoric past unveils a fascinating narrative of migration, tool use, and adaptation, offering a glimpse into the lives of early inhabitants as they navigated the challenges of a changing environment. Picture this: a landscape adorned with hunter-gatherer communities, their hands crafting unique pottery marked with distinctive chord patterns. Welcome to the Jomon period, from 14,000 to 300 BCE, where Japan's earliest inhabitants left an indelible mark in history. Jomon literally translates to rope pattern, which was popular in pottery. These antique ceramics are on show at the Tokyo National Museum. During the Jomon period in ancient Japan, people lived in two houses, pit-type and oval or circular floor houses. The pit-type places had a shallow hole with a dirt floor and a roof, while the oval or circular floor houses were made of stone or clay on the ground with a top. These homes were often grouped in various sizes, forming shapes like horseshoes, and had a central area for social gathering. Little is known about these communities' social and political organization, despite the archaeological findings. It is inferred that each household, possibly led by a headman or shaman, contributed to the overall organization of the town. The primary means of subsistence for the Jomon people included hunting, fishing, and gathering edible roots and nuts. Evidence from larger settlements suggests the possibility of growing specific crops. Non-sharp, chipped stone axes from the era were likely used for soil excavation, indicating some form of early farming. In the middle of the Jomon period, a cultural flourishing lasted around 1,000 years. During this time, it is believed that starchy yams and taro, potentially brought from the continent, were grown, and their starch was used to make a type of bread. This period coincided with advancements in agriculture. Nomadic in nature, these communities thrived on hunting and gathering, and their practical and artistic pottery tells the tale of their everyday lives. Can you imagine the stories hidden in those court-marked masterpieces? Fact time. Before we move ahead, I've got an interesting fact for you about Japan. Each train station in Japan has its own distinctive departure melody, known as Hasha melody. These melodies are carefully composed to evoke a sense of place and are often chosen to reflect the local culture, history, or attractions. The tunes add a pleasant touch to the commuting experience and are also used as a safety feature, alerting passengers to the closing doors before departure. Let's dive into ancient Japan's history and explore the transition from Jomon to Yayoi culture. So, back then, the Jomon culture was evolving when a new player, the Yayoi culture, emerged in Kyoto. It gradually spread east, replacing the Jomon culture until it reached the northern parts of Honshu, the most oversized island in Japan. Fast forward to the Yayoi period, a transformative era from 300 BCE to 300 CE. Here, the scene shifts dramatically. Fields of rice sway in the breeze, a testament to the introduction of rice cultivation that revolutionized how people lived. Metal tools sparkle, marking a technological leap forward. Social structures become more intricate, laying the foundation for the following organized societies. The Yayoi period marks a pivotal moment in Japan's history, where innovation and adaptation take center stage. Yayoi pottery was a game changer. Unlike the fancy Jomon pottery, Yayoi pottery was more functional, rotated on wheels, and fired at higher temperatures. The name Yayoi comes from a Tokyo neighborhood, where this unique pottery was discovered in 1884. This cultural shift brought some cool stuff from China's Qin and Han dynasties, like iron and bronze tools. These included swords, arrowheads, sickles, knives, and even religious bells called taku. The Yayoi folks were into farming, especially rice from southern China. Evidence shows they were already growing rice in northern Kyushu. Their villages were strategically placed on alluvial soil for better irrigation, but we're curious if they were into dry farming or just prioritizing defense. Houses varied from surface structures to pits and raised floor structures for storing grain out of reach for pesky mice. Clothing got an upgrade too, thanks to textile science and the use of vegetable fibers in looms. When it came to saying goodbye, the Yayoi people went big. Hefty stone coffins and giant clay urns, often marked by stone rings or mounds, were famous for burials. Interestingly, these cultural changes hint at interactions with China and Korea, but they didn't change the core characteristics of the Japanese people since Jomon times. Dietary habits probably played a role in the differences seen in skeletal remains rather than major genetic shifts. To wrap it up, these stories from the past are fascinating. If you want to keep exploring Japan's history, remember to subscribe. Next up, we'll journey into the Kofun period. Stay tuned. As we enter the Kofun period, from 300 to 710, the landscape transforms into a series of impressive burial mounds. These monumental structures aren't just resting places. They symbolize the emergence of centralized power. Picture leaders rising to prominence, their influence etched into the earth they rest upon. But there's more to the story. Buddhism, a profound force, makes its grand entrance from China and Korea, bringing a spiritual awakening that would shape Japan's cultural landscape for centuries. In these epochs, Japan undergoes a metamorphosis from nomadic communities to rice cultivators, from court-marked pottery to the grandeur of burial mounds. It's a journey that sets the stage for the rich tapestry of Japanese history yet to unfold. Japan underwent a remarkable transformation in the tranquil embrace of the Nara period, 710 to 794. Picture the landscape with the capital gracefully moving to Nara, becoming the first permanent haven for imperial rule. The city radiated a sense of permanence, mirroring the stability sought by its rulers. As the imperial seat found its home in Nara, the air resonated with a profound influence of Buddhism. Temples emerged as majestic centers of spirituality, adorned with intricate artistry reflecting a blend of indigenous styles and the elegant touch of Chinese influence. Buddhist teachings permeated daily life, shaping the cultural fabric of the era. As time unfurls into the Heian period, 794 to 1185, the imperial capital gracefully pirouettes to Kyoto, a city destined to become a haven of elegance and refinement. In this era, literature and art bloom like delicate cherry blossoms in spring. Heian Kyoto is a testament to the blossoming of artistic endeavors, with aristocratic culture reaching new heights. Imagine a world adorned with vibrant kimono-clad figures, engrossed in the delicate art of calligraphy, or immersed in the creation of waka poetry. The tale of Genji, penned by the noblewoman Murasaki Shikibu, weaves intricate tales of courtly life, love, and longing, etching its place as one of the world's first novels. Yet, beneath this aesthetic surface, complex intrigues of court politics unfolded. The imperial court, adorned in exquisite robes, navigated the delicate dance of power, while the samurai class began to solidify its influence. In this era, Kyoto streets echoed with the whisper of artistic inspiration, leaving an indelible mark on Japan's cultural legacy. The Heian period emerged when the delicate brushstrokes of literature and art painted a vivid portrait of a society flourishing in the delicate nuances of aesthetic sophistication. Another fact time. Before I get into the details of the government rule, here's another fun fact. Kit Kat craze. In Japan, Kit Kats have taken on a unique cultural significance. The name Kit Kat sounds similar to the Japanese phrase Kitokatsu, which means "you will surely win." This has turned Kit Kats into popular gifts, especially during exam seasons, symbolizing good luck and success. The country has embraced a wide variety of exclusive Kit Kat flavors, including green tea, sweet potato, and wasabi, making it a uniquely Japanese treat. Generations of the Fujiwara clan from the north maintained control of the government from the 10th to the 11th century by monopolizing the positions of Sessho and Kampaku. The immense wealth that accrued to them allowed them to live lives of unparalleled brilliance. During the reign of Fujiwara Michinaga, 966 to 1028, things peaked. He had 4 daughters who became the consorts of 4 emperors in a row, and 3 sons who became emperors themselves. During this time, precedent was the primary basis for government, and the court had devolved into a site for highly ceremonialized rituals. The land became privately owned, and individuals were transformed into private citizens, ensuring that the Ritsurio system of public ownership of both land and people only endured in name. Despite high tax rates and other budgetary reforms in the early 10th century, insufficient paddy fields were produced. As the Heian aristocracy's income, the public coffers, decreased, the need to acquire more private land grew. After the Ritsuyo system was implemented, privately held properties called shoen or manors mostly consisted of cultivated rice fields. Aristocrats and temples with plenty of money rushed to develop new places after the government-sponsored opening up of new territory during the Nara era, and they ended up owning a lot of private property. Private land was initially subject to taxation, but by the middle of the Heian period, the owners of shoen had figured out ways to get special exemption from taxes, and the shoen estates had progressively become non-taxable. As a result, the government adopted decrees to prevent the establishment of additional estates in response to the growing number of shoen, which became a significant concern. This did little to prevent the trend of such land from increasing. However, all it did was solidify the position of the current residents. The buildup of private estates, ultimately, the buildup of private estates was legitimized when a proclamation was issued in 1069 that acknowledged all estates that had been formed before 1045 and established a department to examine shoen records. It wasn't easy to alter the situation since the government's elite officials were also the shoen proprietors. Aristocrats and temples in the capital area were free from paying taxes on their property, but strong families in the provinces did not enjoy the same treatment. Members of the imperial family or the aristocracy were therefore complimented for their holdings by these, and they came to agreements with the former to have them become owners in name only, while they kept administrative powers. As a result of these treaties, the aristocracy's lands grew, and their earnings multiplied. During the 11th and 12th centuries, the Fujiwara's family's shoen flourished. A new powerful class, the warrior or samurai class, was emerging in the provinces while the aristocracy was living lavishly on the wealth of their estates. Dissatisfied with the Fujiwara monopoly on senior government seats, younger members of the imperial family and lower-ranking nobles would assume positions as provincial officials, where they would live permanently, acquire territories, and build their influence. They started enlisting the help of locals, particularly the Saicho Kanji, to consolidate their control or establish new regions. A handful of influential provincial nobility amassed sizable armies, primarily due to the centuries-long martial tradition among these local rulers. Consequently, the emergence of such individuals with natural military talent and enough independence meant that even a little event involving them might spark hostilities. Large warbands expanded their power in the provinces during the rise of Taira Masakado in the Kanto region and Fujiwara Sumitomo, two figures from western Japan. At one point, Masakado had control over 7 provinces. The government may have put down the rebellions, but the wars had a devastating impact on the province's morale and the government's reputation. The kana syllabaries, an indigenous alphabet, emerged in the 10th century and were a significant component in developing a uniquely Japanese culture. Japan lacked its own written language until that time. The grammatical differences between Chinese and Japanese necessitated the adoption of ideographs from China to convey both meaning and sound. A phonetic syllabic script was developed by the educated people of the time by simplifying a specific amount of Chinese characters. Another hand was made by shortening Chinese characters. And a watershed moment in Japan's history of concept expression occurred with the introduction of the hiragana and katakana scripts, which allowed for the unrestricted writing of the national language. A tremendous amount of literature and poetry in Japanese was to be generated because of the kana. The Fujiwara daughters stood out in this regard. They were consorts of succeeding emperors throughout the era's aristocratic rule and surrounded themselves with brilliant ladies who competed with one another regarding intelligence and literary prowess. Since males often wrote official papers in stilted Chinese using the hiragana character, this gave these women a chance to express themselves creatively via literature. 2 of these works are considered literary masterpieces: Murasaki Shikibu's The Tale of Genji and Sei Shonagon's The Pillow Book of Matsura no Soshi. Sei Shonagon was a lady-in-waiting to Empress Sadako and wrote a compilation of vivid events and happenings from court life. The many poetry styles included in the Manyoshu had been streamlined into waka by the Heian period. A courtier's ability to compose a poem was considered a necessary skill, and the 31-syllable waka constituted an integral aspect of the aristocracy's everyday existence. In 905, the first of several anthologies of poems compiled by the imperial decree, the Kokinsho or Kokin Wakashu, was assembled because of the high regard for good poetry production. The aristocracy's professions and love lives were shaped by their proficiency in versification, and official and informal poetry contests were commonplace due to the widespread interest in writing. Similarly, Buddhism, too, saw a notable shift towards the formation of exclusively Japanese traits. The Shingon and Tendai schools of thought continued to thrive and produce brilliant monks. It was left to the Pure Land, or Jodo, sect of Buddhism to teach a religion that aimed to inspire common people to want redemption, as the closely knit monarchy and nobility tended to prioritize worldly wealth and riches over strictly religious aspirations. Pure Land Buddhism, a sect that emerged only in the 12th and 13th century, appeared to offer an ideal hope of salvation amid the disorder and decay of the old order. This sect preached the glories of the world after death, the paradise of Amida, or Amidba, or Buddha of infinite light, and urged everyone to give up the pollution of this world to be reborn in this paradise. As the Heian era came to a close and violence permeated across society, its popularity soared. Relying on the simple instructions to call upon Amida's name and focus on his divinity markings, adherents of the Pure Land religion could attain rebirth without grappling with complex theories or rigorous ascetic practices. This teaching also moved artists and created an incredible array of Amida sculptures and paintings. His gentle features and gently curved robe starkly contrast with the hideous Buddhist sculptures of the previous era, reflecting a distinctly Japanese taste. The art form known as Yamatoe, literally Japanese painting, is another manifestation of this cultural Japanization. While some Yamatoe satirically lampooned the actions of the royal nobility, the vast majority dealt with more secular topics, such as the life and work of Sugawara Michisane or the tale of Genji. it was clear from all the indicators that Japanese culture was becoming more autonomous, which meant that the naturalization process was almost 2 centuries after the initial intake of continental culture. Now, let's journey back to the Kamakura period, 1185 to 1333, like a chapter in a storybook. Imagine a world where the samurai, these warrior folk, rise in importance. They're like the main characters in the play, wearing armor and showcasing loyalty and fighting skills. As history is written, so is our story unfolding. The Kamakura shogunate steps onto the stage, becoming the new leader. Think of them as the directors guiding the show. The political scene changed, and these military leaders became crucial, creating a kind of harmony in the land. Kamakura, the setting, witnesses the samurai becoming guardians, protecting and shaping how things work. But hold on, because there's a hint that more complex things are going on in the following chapters. Hit that subscribe button now and be part of our growing community. By subscribing, you unlock a treasure trove of content, ensuring you never miss a chapter of our engaging narratives. Join us on this journey of exploration and learning. Let's flip the pages to the Muromachi period, 1333 to 1573. Picture a peaceful Zen garden, not in a painting, but in real life, where everything has a purpose. Here, the Ashikaga shogunate takes charge, like the storytellers guiding us through a new chapter. In this time, Zen Buddhism becomes a calming presence, offering peace amid a changing political scene. The leaders, the Ashikaga folks, become supporters of arts and culture. Imagine a world where paintings come to life, tea ceremonies become graceful rituals, and theaters bring tales to the stage. But here's the twist. Dark clouds gather on the horizon. The Warring States period is like a storm about to hit. Feudal lords, like characters in the drama, start fighting for control. The peaceful balance breaks, setting the stage for an era where battles will echo through the land, shaping the destiny of Japan with every clash. In this chapter, Japan experiences peace and turbulence, setting the scene for what comes next in its incredible story. Imagine Japan in the late 16th century, a land fractured by a century-long civil war. Enter Oda Nobunaga, a central figure who embarked on the challenging task of reuniting the nation. Fortunes favored him as his formidable adversaries, Takeda Shingen and Uesugi Kenshin, both East's mightiest, met their end before they could subdue him. In the pivotal Battle of Okehasama, 1560, Nobunaga faced the daunting task of thwarting an invasion by Imagawa Yoshimoto. Despite being outnumbered nearly tenfold, Nobunaga's ingenious strategies, crafted through prayer and determination, led to unexpected victory. This triumph marked a turning point, elevating Nobunaga's stature across Japan. Following Shingen's demise, Nobunaga further solidified his influence, conquering the Takeda clan in the Battle of Nagashino, 1575. Yet, amidst his rise, a tragic end awaited him at Honnoji Temple in Kyoto in 1582, where Akechi Mitsuhide took his life. This event, known as the Honnoji Incident, thrust a loyal commander, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, into the spotlight. Displaying remarkable leadership, Hideyoshi overcame Akechi, ultimately unifying Japan. As the curtain rose in the Edo period, 1603 to 1868 AD, Japan entered an era of tranquility and isolation. The Tokugawa shogunate, wary of external influences, particularly Catholicism, tightens its grip on the nation. This period witnessed Japan organizing its civilization, with a peak in book publishing and printing, urban education, and even foreign interest in Japanese ports. Yet, beneath the veneer of calm, a current of change flows. The country evolves, setting the stage for a transformation that will echo through the ages. Bakumatsu is the Japanese term for the stages of development immediately after the Edo period, 1603 to 1868. The end of the Bakufu is what the Chinese characters for Bakumatsu mean. The Tokugawa shogunate, which governed Japan from 1600 until 1868, ended at this point. The invasion of the Tokugawa shogunate by US Navy Commander Matthew C. Perry and his notorious black ships, a fleet sent to make the Japanese open up to commerce after centuries of seclusion, contributed to the shogunate's downfall. The United States and the Japanese Empire signed the Treaty of Amity and Commerce in 1858, which was one such trade deal. The Tokugawa shogunate official E. Naosuke, who negotiated the conditions of this treaty, faced severe penalties as a result. Trade in the ports of Tokyo, Kobe, Nagasaki, Niigata, and Yokohama was open to foreigners, and extraterritoriality was allowed by the treaty. The Sakuratamon incident, which took place in 1860, resulted from a scheme by E's opponents, who were outraged by what they saw as an attack on Japanese sovereignty. The killing set in motion a chain reaction that began with the assault on British citizens in Japan, known as the Namamugi incident in 1862. The Anglo-Satsuma War broke out when the Satsuma clan did not apologize to the British for their reparations demands. The chants of Son no Joy, which mean revere the emperor, expel the barbarians, manifested the widespread desire to return control to the emperor when the people's faith in the Tokugawa shogunate collapsed. In 1864 and 1865, the Tokugawa shogunate launched two punitive expeditions: the first Choshu expedition and the second Choshu expedition. That brought the Choshu domain under scrutiny. After the Tokugawa shogunate allied with the United States, the United Kingdom, France, and the Netherlands, they shelled Shimonoseki, which bolstered these expeditions even more. To oust the Tokugawa shogunate of Japan and reinstate imperial power, the 1866 Sacho alliance was created by Satsuma and Choso military chiefs with the mediation of Sakamoto Ryoma of the Tosa domain. To protect the Tokugawa shogunate and ensure its continued participation in future administration, Yoshinobu Tokugawa, the 15th shogun, restored imperial sovereignty in 1867. The last of the samurai, who had governed Japan for almost 700 years, were drawing close to the end of their reign when the Bushin War broke out. Those who wanted to restore political authority to the imperial court and the Tokugawa shogunate waged a civil war from 1868 to 1869. Its outcome was the absolute dominance of imperial control over Japan. Now, shift your gaze to the Meiji period, 1862 to 1912 AD, a time of renewal and transformation. Picture Tokyo replacing Kyoto as the capital, a symbolic shift in imperial authority. Awakening from centuries of isolation, Japan charts a course to become a wealthy and mighty nation, resilient against Western incursions. The Meiji reforms dismantled the social barriers of Tokugawa Japan, emphasizing human rights, religious freedom, and the return of domains from feudal lords to the emperor. As Westernization gains momentum, a patriotic and conservative spirit surfaces, highlighting Confucianism and Shinto ideals. In pursuit of industrialization, Japanese intellectuals venture abroad, soaking up knowledge of science and languages. Government support fuels the expansions of industries, setting the stage for Japan's economic rise. Victories in the Sino-Japanese War, 1895, and the Russo-Japanese War, 1904, thrust Japan onto the world stage, culminating in a journey from tradition to modernity. In its broadest sense, the Meiji Restoration was a political upheaval that ended the Tokugawa shogunate's reign and the Meiji era, 1868 to 1912. After the war, the newly crowned Emperor Meiji returned control to the royal palace. Impressively, Japan underwent a profound political, economic, and social transformation in only half a century, ushering in the country's modernization and westernization. Among the factors that prompted the Meiji Restoration was the perception that Japan's treaties with Western countries were unjust. Many of the policies created during the Meiji era were based on the idea of reclaiming Japanese strength and sovereignty. Japanese nationalists, still reeling from almost 2 centuries of isolation, worried that their country might face the same kind of Western interference that had befallen China in the middle of the 19th century. So, the rallying cry for establishing a nation-state that could compete with Western powers was enrich the country, strengthen the army, or Fukuoka Kohei. Shifting Japan's imperial capital from Kyoto to Edo, later renamed Tokyo, or the capital of the East, was the first order of business. After this, the feudal system and its privileged classes were dismantled, and the current system of prefectures was instituted to replace domains. An ideological change toward nationalism also came from establishing a national army, universal conscription legislation, and a national education system. There was a change in focus from defending against colonization by the West to striving for parity with the industrialized nations of the West. Nobody was happy about these developments. A rebellion that began in the 1870s and peaked in the 1880s was spearheaded by ex-samurai who had been deposed from their position of power and privilege. Agrarian and taxation policies that benefited the new Meiji administration financially at the expense of ordinary people were unpopular with the peasants. A rising public rights movement demanded the establishment of a constitutional government in response to the advent of universal education, mainly preceded by importing Western ideas. The first Prime Minister of Japan, Ito Hidebumi, prepared the Meiji Constitution 4 years after the establishment of the cabinet system in 1885 as a result of this. In the Meiji Constitution, modeled after the combined constitutional and absolute monarchy models of Prussia and Britain, the Prime Minister was titled Head of the Government, and the Meiji Emperor was named Head of State. The present Constitution of Japan is based on revisions made to the Meiji Constitution in 1964. Industrialization and modernization in Japan were massive throughout the Meiji period, coinciding with the country's political advancements. The widespread promotion of Western culture was known as Bunmei Kaika, or civilization and enlightenment. The Japanese embraced various fads to advance and fortify their scientific, technological, iron and steel, shipbuilding, coal mining, and architectural sectors. By 1880, all major cities were connected by telegraph lines, and the first railroad was constructed in 1872. In addition to public enterprises, private businesses were subsidized by the government, which helped establish a banking system similar to that of Europe in 1882. Japan had developed into a fully functional industrial power by the late 19th century. In 1894, the unfair treaties of 1854 were reformed, which awarded economical and legal benefits to foreign countries throughout extraterritoriality. Emperor Meiji's death in 1912 formally ended the Meiji era, but many prominent Meiji leaders, including those who had attended Hagi's Shoka Shunjuku, lived on as elder statesmen. As we talk about the history of Japan, let me point out an interesting fact about the ancient country. Japan is renowned for its innovation in urban living, and one fascinating manifestation of this is the invention of capsule hotels. These unique accommodations offer travelers a cozy, minimalistic experience by providing small, individual pods for sleeping. Each pod typically contains a bed, a small storage space, and sometimes a television. It's a space-saving solution that reflects Japan's ingenuity in optimizing urban living, offering an affordable and efficient option for those seeking a place to rest in the bustling cities of Japan. Capsule hotels have gained popularity for their quirky design and efficient use of limited space, showcasing Japan's commitment to innovation in every aspect of life. One of the main objectives of the Meiji leaders was to attain parity with the West. During the 1871 visit of the Iwakura expedition to the Americas and Europe, efforts were made to revise the treaties in order to remove the economic and legal advantages enjoyed by foreigners due to extraterritoriality and fixed customs charges. But the Western nations were certain that the treaties couldn't be changed until the Japanese legal system was modeled like the US and Europe. In the 1880s, Japanese opposition organizations and the press opposed attempts to achieve a compromise solution. Thus, the extraterritoriality clauses of treaties were not legally altered until 1894. Prioritizing home improvement above Asian contacts was common throughout the early part of the Meiji era. The Aborigines of Formosa, now Taiwan, were subject to a punitive expedition in 1874, when they were punished for the deaths of Ryukyuan fishermen. During the Tokugawa era, the Ryukyu Islands were influenced by the Satsuma, but this gave credence to Japanese claims to them. The incorporation of the Ryukyus into Japan took place in 1879, against objections from China. Meiji officials, however, consistently shut down nationalist and liberal demands for a more robust foreign policy against Korea. Meanwhile, China's worries about Japan's growing influence in Korea, a country that China continued to see as a subordinate state, grew. The potential for conflict between China and Japan over peninsula incidents in 1882 and 1884 was resolved by compromise, and in 1885, the two countries agreed that neither would send soldiers to Korea without alerting the other. The early 1890s saw a rise in Chinese influence over Korea. To quell a local uprising in 1894, Korea sought Chinese aid. Japan sent forces rushing to Korea as soon as the Chinese informed Tokyo of this. Neither side withdrew once the uprising was put down. The formal eruption of the Sino-Japanese War occurred in July 1894. After losing its northern fleet to the overwhelming Japanese naval and ground forces, China filed a request for peace. China ceded Formosa, the Pescadores Islands, and the Liaotong Peninsula to Japan on April 17, 1895, as part of the peace treaty negotiated at Shimonoseki. Japan was granted all rights enjoyed by European powers, and China made substantial economic concessions, such as the opening of new treaty ports and a large indemnity in gold, in exchange for these concessions. In 1896, Japan and other countries linked a commercial pact that granted Japan preferential tax exemptions and other advantages in commerce and industry. As a result, Japan severed even more conditions from its neighbor as a sign of its independence from the unfair treaties. As a result of their unwillingness to support Japanese succession, Germany, Russia, and France returned the Liaotong Peninsula to China. The insult was compounded in 1898 when China leased the land from Russia that included its strategic naval station, Port Arthur, now Lushun. Thus, the war proved that Japan could not sustain its military triumphs in Asia without enduring Western suffering. Additionally, it elevated Japan's international standing, garnered widespread support for the government within the country, and fortified the role of the military in shaping national policy. Korea, unwilling to submit to Japanese authority, turned to Russia for assistance. While Japanese forces were instrumental in the Allied mission to evacuate foreign nationals from Beijing during the Boxer Rebellion in 1900 in China, Russia fortified its ties to Korea by occupying southern Manchuria. The Japanese started negotiations with England that resulted in the Anglo-Japanese alliance in 1902, after realizing they needed protection from several European foes. Each nation committed to helping the other in case of a combined military offensive, but both sides also pledged to stay neutral in the event that one side went to war with another. With Britain's support, Tokyo was ready to stand together in the face of Russian aggression in Korea and Manchuria. Without prior notice, Japanese ships stormed the Russian Navy at Port Arthur in 1904. The subsequent Russo-Japanese War, 1904 to 1905, saw widespread success for Japanese forces. The most notable triumph was at the Tsushima Strait when Admiral Togo Heihachiro's ships decimated the Russian Baltic Fleet. US President Theodore Roosevelt's willingness to broker a peace solution was a relief to Japan because the war had cost the country a great deal in lives and wealth. On September 5, 1905, Japan was accorded supremacy over Korea by the Treaty of Portsmouth. Russia, in turn, ceded its economic and political interests in southern Manchuria, including the Liaotong Peninsula, to Japan. The southern half of Sakhalin Island was likewise given to Japan by Russia. In addition to shifting the power dynamic in East Asia, the triumph against Russia stoked flames of nationalism in India and the Middle East. However, the pact was unpopular in Japan due to the country's inability to secure an indemnity to cover the high expenditures of the war. The end of the war gave the Japanese government more autonomy in Korea. Tolerance for Korean resistance to Japanese reforms had been eroded. While serving as a resident general in Korea, Ito Hirohumi oversaw the deposition of the Korean monarch and pushed through treaties that relegated Korea to the status of protectorate. Japan seized Korea in 1910 as a result of Ito's murder in 1909. The Korean people's resistance and freedoms were stifled. Not only had Japan attained parity with the West by the time the Meiji Emperor passed away in 1912, but it had also emerged as the dominant imperialist force in East Asia. In the years that followed, Japan was able to put its newfound might to good use. It sided with the Allies in World War I, but didn't do much beyond capture German territories in the Pacific and China. In 1915, Japan demanded a number of concessions from China in response to Chinese demands for the return of former German holdings in Shantung province. These demands included things like joint control of China's coal and iron resources, longer leases in Manchuria, and Chinese city policing and harbor policy. The Chinese caved to certain Japanese requests, but they refused to budge from their most extreme positions, which would have made China their ward. Despite the economic benefits, the legacy of Japan's policies towards China during World War I is one of mistrust and animosity on both sides of the Atlantic. Japan lost any chance of friendship with China due to its greedy demands, and China's disappointment at not being able to recoup its losses from the Treaty of Versailles. Modern Chinese nationalism is anti-Japanese, which was further reinforced by Japan's support of corrupt warlord administrations in North China and Manchuria. There were already fears about Japanese expansion before their role in the Allied intervention in Siberia after the Bolshevik Revolution of 1918 added fuel to the fire. At the disarmament conference that took place in Washington, D.C. in 1921 and 1922, a reduction in Japanese influence was a primary goal. A web of treaties was crafted to ensure Japan's safety while limiting its aspirations. A four-power pact comprising France, Japan, the US, and Britain supplanted the Anglo-Japanese alliance. Another treaty, the Five-Power Naval Limitation Treaty, jointly with Italy, established limitations for battleships as follows: 5 for the US and UK, 3 for Japan. Japan wanted reassurance that its home seas would be secure, so it reached an agreement to fortify bases on islands in the Pacific. Some believed that a 9-power pact would finally shield China from additional demands made on an individual basis. Shortly after agreeing to withdraw from Shantung, Japan's soldiers departed from Siberia and the northern parts of Sakhalin. The United States and the Soviet Union signed a treaty in 1925 that officially recognized the Soviet Union and halted hostilities. So, Japan's remarkable advance in Asia and the Pacific came to a halt by the mid-1920s. The removal of these distracting symbols of Japan's weakness and inferiority gave rise to the hopeful expectation that the country's policies would adopt a more moderate and reasonable tone. The Meiji era was a time of fast economic modernization in Japan. Private Japanese businesses and the Japanese government both embraced Western expertise and technology to build factories that could manufacture a diverse array of goods. By the period's end, manufactured products made up the bulk of Japan's exports. Massive Zaibatsu, or family-owned conglomerates like Sumitomo and Mitsubishi, were among Japan's most prosperous new sectors and enterprises. The incredible expansion of industry led to a surge of city dwellers. From 75% in 1872 to 50% in 1920, the percentage of people engaged in agriculture decreased. The old underground route in Asia, the Ginza route, which opened in 1927, is located in Tokyo. During this period, Japan's economy was booming, and people were living longer and healthier lives on average. In 1872, the population was 34 million. By 1915, it had risen to 52 million. There was a rising labor discontent due to bad working conditions in companies, and many intellectuals and workers embraced socialist views. In response, the Meiji administration cracked down hard on the opposition. The Toko Secret Police Unit was formed to apprehend left-wing agitators following the conspiracy by radical socialists to kill the emperor in the high treason incident of 1910. In 1911, the government also passed social laws that established the minimum employment age and limited labor hours. Fast forward to the present day, and Japan has undergone a remarkable transformation from its imperial ambitions of the late 1800s. Japan, as we know it today, is a global economic powerhouse, a hub of technological innovation, and a beacon of modernity. Well, let's trace the journey from the empire's rise to power to the contemporary landscape of modern Japan. Having asserted control over Taiwan and annexed Korea in the early 1900s, Japan stood at a critical juncture in its history. The Russo-Japanese War of 1904 to 1905 would not only shape its destiny of the nation, but also redefine its geopolitical standing on the world stage. Japan's expansionist endeavors, marked by the acquisition of Taiwan and Korea, set the stage for conflicts that would test the mettle of the rising empire. The imperialistic ambitions were driven by the belief that securing resources and strategic territories was imperative for Japan to compete with Western powers. In 1904, Japan found itself in a face-off with Russia, a formidable Western power expanding its influence in Asia. The Russo-Japanese War was a pivotal moment, showcasing Japan's military prowess and determination to challenge the status quo. The Battle of the Yalu River marked the first time in decades that an Asian power had defeated a Western force. The war reached its climax in the Battle of Tsushima in 1905, a naval engagement that would go down in history. Japan's navy, modernized and equipped with cutting-edge technology, secured a resounding victory. The defeat of Russia not only established Japan as a regional power, but also signaled a seismic shift in the global balance of power. Japan emerged victorious, but the consequences of the war were profound. The Treaty of Portsmouth, brokered by US President Theodore Roosevelt in 1905, recognized Japan's territorial gains, but it also exposed the strains of imperial ambitions. The post-war period saw Japan asserting its influence over Korea, leading to its full annexation in 1910. The Russo-Japanese War's outcome resonated far beyond Asia. Japan's triumph shattered perceptions of Western invincibility and propelled the nation to the forefront of international affairs. It marked the first time an Asian power had defeated a major Western nation, reshaping the geopolitical landscape and challenging existing power dynamics. After his father, Emperor Hirohito, passed away, his son, Emperor Akihito, took the throne. Japan went into a deflationary cycle when the economic bubble burst in 1989, sending stock and land values plunging. Insurmountable debt burdened banks and slowed the economic recovery. As the birth rate fell well below the replacement level, stagnation became even more severe. People in Japan commonly say that the 1990s were the lost decade. The stock market never recovered to its levels before 1989, and economic performances in the decades that followed were generally dismal. Unemployment rates increased as Japan's lifelong employment system essentially fell apart. Several corruption scandals and a weakening economy undermined the LDP's once dominant political position. However, from 1993 to 1996 and 2009 to 2012, the prime ministers of Japan were not from the LDP. As Japan dealt with the aftermath of its war, ties with Korea and China became more tense. Since the 1950s, more than 50 formal war apologies have been issued by Japanese leaders and monarchs. Official apologies, such as the Emperor's in 1990 and the Murayama Statement in 1995, were deemed insufficient or dishonest by several Korean and Chinese leaders. This has been made worse by nationalist politics, which has led to revisionist history textbooks that have incited riots in East Asia, as well as the denial of the Nanjing Massacre and other war atrocities. Convicted war criminals are among the enshrined, although Japanese officials often visit the Yasukuni Shrine to remember the dead from battles that occurred between 1868 and 1954. As of December 2020, Japan's population had dropped below 126 million, having peaked in 2008 at 128,083,960. By nominal GDP in 2011, China had overtaken Japan as the world's second biggest economy. During this time, at least 295 video games, anime, and manga, all forms of Japanese popular culture, expanded globally, particularly among young people, despite Japan's economic woes. The Canton structure was surpassed in March 2011 by the Tokyo Skytree, which at 634 meters or 2,080 feet became the world's highest structure. At the moment, it ranks as the world's third tallest building. The northeastern region of Japan was struck by one of the biggest earthquakes ever recorded on March 11, 2011. The nuclear power plant at Fukushima was destroyed by the subsequent tsunami, leading to a nuclear meltdown and massive radiation leaks. The 2020 Summer Olympics were scheduled to be held in Tokyo for the second time after 1964 in 2020. 2 Olympic Games were held in Japan, making it the first Asian nation to do so. The Summer Olympics were rescheduled from July 23 to August 8, 2021, as a result of the worldwide spread and economic consequences of the COVID-19 epidemic. Japan placed third in the medal count with 27 gold medals. Japan strongly denounced and sanctioned Russia in response to the 2022 Russian invasion of Ukraine. Volodymyr Zelensky, president of Ukraine, lauded Japan, calling it the first Asian nation that has begun exerting pressure on Russia. Japan placed a temporary freeze on the assets of many Russian financial institutions, including the central bank, as well as 500 individuals and organizations linked to Russia. Investments from new companies and the export of high-tech goods were both outlawed by Japan. The preferred nation's trade status with Russia was removed. The rapidity with which Japan has responded demonstrates its rise to global prominence. As a result of the war in Ukraine and the dangers posed by China and North Korea, Japan has changed its security strategy and is now spending more on defense, which is a move away from its previous pacifist position. 2 days prior to the 2022 House of Councillors election, on July 8th, former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe was killed in Nara by Tetsuya Yamagami, a former serviceman of the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force. Because gun deaths in Japan are so uncommon, this news stunned the populace. Between 2017 and 2022, there were a total of 10 gunshot deaths, and in 2021, there was just 1 gun-related fatality. Now, let's shift our focus to contemporary Japan's vibrant and dynamic landscape. Today, Japan is a testament to the harmonious coexistence of tradition and modernity, seamlessly blending ancient customs with cutting-edge technology and global pop culture. One of the most iconic symbols of modern Japan is the bustling metropolis of Tokyo. As the world's most populous city, Tokyo pulsates with energy and innovation. Skyscrapers tower over traditional temples, and neon-lit streets lead to historic districts. The juxtaposition of the old and the new is evident in every corner, from the landmark Asakusa district to the futuristic Akihabara, the hub of Japan's otaku, or anime and manga fan, culture. Speaking of which, Japan's influence on global pop culture is undeniable, primarily driven by the phenomena of manga and anime. Manga, or Japanese comics, and anime, animated TV shows and films, have captivated audiences worldwide. The colorful characters, intricate storylines, and imaginative worlds created by Japanese manga artists and animators have transcended cultural boundaries, garnering an international fanbase. The global appeal of anime has given rise to events like Comic Market or Comic-Con, and Anime Expo, drawing enthusiasts worldwide. Iconic series such as Dragon Ball, Naruto, and Sailor Moon have become cultural touchstones, contributing to the spread of Japanese pop culture globally. Beyond entertainment, Japan remains a pioneer in technological advancements. The nation continues to lead the way in robotics, artificial intelligence, and innovation. Companies like Toyota, Sony, and Nintendo have become synonymous with quality and innovation, shaping industries from automotive to gaming. The latter half of the 20th century marked a pivotal period in Japan's history, witnessing an extraordinary ascent to global technological leadership. Renowned companies like Sony, Toyota, and Nintendo not only became household names, but also exemplified Japan's prowess in innovation and quality. This remarkable transformation was propelled by a strategic emphasis on education, research, and development, leading to groundbreaking achievements across various fields. Japanese companies emerged as trailblazers in technological innovations, setting new standards for excellence. Sony, a pioneer in consumer electronics, introduced groundbreaking products such as the Walkman and the Trinitron television. Toyota revolutionized the automotive industry with its efficient production methods and the introduction of innovative, reliable vehicles. Nintendo, a key player in the gaming industry, crafted iconic franchises like Mario and Zelda. At the heart of Japan's technological prowess was its unwavering commitment to education. The nation prioritized science, technology, engineering, and mathematics or STEM disciplines, cultivating a skilled workforce that could drive innovation. The rigorous and disciplined education system became a cornerstone for the nation's technological advancements. Japan's emphasis on research and development became a catalyst for groundbreaking discoveries. The collaboration between government, academia, and industry, often referred to as the triple helix model, facilitated a seamless integration of research into practical applications. This synergy led to advancements in fields such as electronics, robotics, and materials science. The 1980s witnessed a boom in Japanese consumer electronics. Sony's Walkman revolutionized how people experience music, and the introduction of compact disc or CD technology further solidified Japan's position as an industry leader. The nation's companies continually pushed the boundaries of what was possible, creating cutting-edge gadgets that captivated global markets. Toyota's innovative production methods, notably the Toyota Production System, became a global benchmark for efficiency in manufacturing. Japan's automotive industry excelled at producing fuel-efficient, reliable vehicles, with models like Toyota Corolla and Prius gaining widespread acclaim. The commitment to quality and continuous improvements propelled Japanese automakers to the forefront of the global market. Nintendo played a transformative role in the gaming industry. The introduction of the Nintendo Entertainment System, or NES, in the 1980s revolutionized home gaming, creating a global phenomenon. Japan's gaming companies not only pioneered hardware advancements, but also developed iconic franchises and characters that captured the imagination of millions worldwide. By the end of the 20th century, Japan had firmly established itself as a global technological giant. The nation's advancements in electronics, automotive engineering, and entertainment technology had profound impact on industries worldwide. Japanese companies became synonymous with quality, innovation, and reliability, setting the stage for Japan's continued influence in the 21st century. In essence, Japan's rise as a global technological leader during the latter half of the 20th century was a testament to its dedication to excellence, a commitment to education, and an unwavering pursuit of innovation that continues to shape the technological landscape today. While Tokyo represents the epitome of urban sophistication, Kyoto, with its tranquil landscapes and preserved traditions, offer a glimpse into Japan's historical roots. The ancient temples, tea ceremonies, and traditional arts coexist harmoniously with modern amenities, creating a unique and enchanting atmosphere. Japan's commitment to preserving its cultural heritage is evident in UNESCO-listed sites like Kyoto's Kinkakuji, or Golden Pavilion, and Nara's Todaiji Temple. These landmarks testify to Japan's reverence for its past, even as the nation hurtles into the future. Contemporary Japan is a captivating fusion of tradition and innovation, where the ancient and modern coexist. As we navigate the bustling streets of Tokyo and explore the timeless beauty of Kyoto, we witness a nation that continues to evolve while cherishing its rich cultural heritage. On August 4, 2022, following Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan, China launched what it called precision missile strikes in international waters near Taiwan's shores. Tensions in the region were heightened by these military drills. Japan's Ministry of Defense submitted a diplomatic complaint with Beijing after reporting that Chinese-launched ballistic missiles landed in their exclusive economic zones for the first time. Near Taiwan, in Japan's exclusive economic zone or EEZ, 5 missiles from China touched down. According to Nobuo Kishi, Japan's defense minister, these missiles pose serious threats to Japan's national security and the safety of the Japanese people. By increasing its defense spending to 2% of GDP, which is 43 trillion yen or $350 billion by 2027, and obtaining counterstrike capabilities, Japan declared a significant change in its military strategy on December 16, 2022. Motivating factors include worries about Russia, North Korea, and China in the area. As a result, Japan will move up the ranks of the world's major defense spenders, passing both China and the US and moving into 3rd place. And there you have it, a glimpse into the incredible journey of Japan, from its ancient roots to its pulsating heartbeat of modernity. If you found this exploration of Japan's history as fascinating as we did, don't forget to hit that like button. Share this video with fellow history enthusiasts. and subscribe to our channel for more immersive journeys through time. For those hungry for more historical adventures and cultural explorations, check out our other videos and stay tuned for upcoming content. Until then, matane, or see you later, and thank you for joining us on this fascinating journey through the captivating history of Japan.